Welcome back, everyone, to Thunderdome Metal Reviews, your church of heavy metal. I am the Reverend Dangerously. With me, as always, are Gabe Cooper, Dr. David Pizzo, and Tracy, the spreadsheet Newport. Gentlemen, it's been a while since we've congregated to do this. How are you all doing?
Doing pretty good. It's been, well, I think this is the first time in 4 weeks we've done actual albums instead of the review, and then we took a couple breaks for Christmas.
You know, I just had a 2-hour dance party with my family since we can't see anyone ever again because of Omicron. So that was pretty cool. So I'm pretty amped, and I dig this record a lot. This is going to be one of those back in my day, like because I was me and Ben got this the week it came out on 8-track anyway, but doing great.
Well, I unfortunately have a head like a hole, so I'm not sure if I'm going to make it through this.
This hate machine sure is pretty.
Sure is pretty. Yeah, no, I'm interested to hear all y'all's battle stories of old. I will be jumping on the train as a noob, as usual.
I have a question for David in his dance party, though.
Yes.
Did you sneak a mosh into there at least once, though?
No, I want to stay married. See, Tracy, this is why I am in much less threat of being assassinated than you, I think, by Haley. No, man. In fact, she even said this better not be that music with no lyrics. Like, she doesn't even want that, like, you know, music that robots would listen to and they rip you in half shit I listen to. So there's literally a playlist called Better Have Lyrics Dance is the name of it. So I pulled that shit up and fired it off, and, you know, little RuPaul, little Scissor Sisters. I'm not even joking. Better have lyrics, parentheses, or I'll fucking kill you. So, yeah, it was fun though, because my kid now does like cartwheels and shit. It's completely bananas. It's like bouncing off the walls. So it was like the Matrix, basically. But, and the best dance club Murray has currently, actually. Like, I stand by that. Tracy's like, he's like, nope, that's it. Not even the Night Owl, man. Like, it's just us. Be the dance club you want to see in the world. This album's a tiny bit dancey. It's certainly very industrial. I'm interested to see how much Tracy hated it.
Yeah, I am too. For those of you who are not watching us on YouTube, we are doing Nine Inch Nails' Pretty Hate Machine, their debut studio album released on October 20th of 1989. Recorded in a bunch of different studios: Black Queen Studios, Roundhouse Studios, London, The Right Track, Cleveland, Synchro Sound, Boston, Unique Recording Studios, New York City. It was released on TBT Records. Producers were Trent Reznor, Flood, John Fryer, Keith LeBlanc, and Adrian Sherwood. Had a runtime of 48 minutes and 32 seconds. And basically, it is the Trent Reznor show because he did everything that, except for like play guitar on one track, and the other producers did some programming.
And he killed those people after they performed.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, this is I didn't realize that this had come out in 89, because I don't think I'd started listening to it till about 91 or so.
Sure. I got it in 90, so not that long after. I think pretty early in 90, so just, I don't know, a few months after it came out. Because, you know, I think I heard it on MTV. Yeah,
that's where I remember hearing it too, so my timeline might be slightly off. But it was basically seeing the video for Head Like a Hole.
Exactly. No, same. And I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. You know, and I'd already started dabbling in the darkness that was Ministry, which is Tracy's favorite band. Can't wait for that Ministry blast. Anyway, but it was, you know, very much a product of its time. I'm not sure how innovative it was, which is not a dig. I really like this record. I don't know. It is certainly very well made and absolutely defined. Certainly what he would do, and I think a lot of spun off came off of him. But I don't know. I would argue Ministry or maybe the OGs. I don't know. We don't have to have that argument, but or for that matter, KMFDM. There was already stuff like this. Is all I'm saying. Which that's true. Most of the music we review.
Sure, I would say that. As far as that goes, I completely agree with you that it was not innovative in that way, but this is the one that broke into the mainstream.
I agree with that. 100%.
So it's probably considered that. And I think that there are some elements of this that are slightly different than what Ministry was doing. but only slightly. And most of the people I knew who were into this, and I will be completely honest, initially I was not into this at all. I was like, I had like a Hole's a cool song. There are a couple other tracks on here that I liked, but I was just like, what is this bullshit? And the people that I knew who were really super into it were like people who were coming out of Bauhaus and other stuff in the goth rock movement.
Yes,
like they really just tapped into this. And so I think that adding those elements, because this to me reminds me in some ways of a scaled up Joy Division.
I agree with that too. Yeah, in my
That's really interesting.
Oh, yeah, please go ahead, Kip.
I was just going to say it's really interesting that you said it's kind of like a take on Joy Division. I heard a lot of New Order and Joy Division and Depeche Mode in here, and I kind of agree with what David was saying too about this not being super original, because it just sounds very 80s to me. And this is 1989 he's doing this, and the industrial stuff is not really there. I would say it's like kind of there a little bit on a few tracks, but it could be a lot more. So in that way, it's already different from what Ministry is doing, and it's not political in the slightest. Like, I mean, as opposed to Ministry, which is pretty freaking political stuff, like all the time. Another interesting fact about this that I learned was that part of it was made in Cleveland. Actually, a large portion of it was made in Cleveland. So you have to wonder, who was Trent Reznor hanging around with here that, was inspiring him to make stuff like this. I think reading about it too, him as a solo artist on this, a really jack of all trades. He's working in this studio in Cleveland. He's got a handle on all the instruments he needs. He's actually looking to Prince. He's saying like Prince does this too.
I agree.
And I could do it. That's kind of getting him going. I don't think that for me, there wasn't as much innovation there. It sort of was an interesting combination of things that existed already, and maybe that combination was unique.
Yeah, as I'm sure Ministry dabbled, like went back and forth. Those early albums literally sound like Depeche Mode.
Right.
So that slip, and I know Ben reviews some of that music, so that all makes sense. Yeah, that's the thing. I was like, okay, this sounds like the culmination of the 80s, but it sounds like a culmination of the 80s. I hung out with a bunch of goths in the Island of Misfit Toys. That was my social group, so they were super into this. And Burn, which is the EP after this, turns the industrial up a lot. And I think it was really Burn that I kind of fell in love with, because it came out not that long after this. I think it's 91. I'm looking at it here. When did you come out, Burn? 92, so a little bit later than that. So a couple of years after I got this one. But that album is more industrial, and I liked it a little more than this one, maybe.
Well,
but
definitely all the stuff that came out of this with Ministry as well, because this same year is when The Mind's a Terrible Thing to Taste came out, and I don't remember that being super heavy either, at least, or super industrial, quote unquote.
Really? We need to redo that album, man. I think it's heavier than you remember it. I think it's heavier in some ways than Psalm 69, actually.
Okay, because I remember Psalm 69 being when they went really heavy, and that could just be a faulty memory. But considering what had come out like the year before with The Land of Rape and Honey, this is heavier than that. So, at least musically, maybe not, lyric wise.
I was going to say, with like killing people with a drill is really what that album evokes. No, you're right. But in terms of like guitar and such, I agree. Yeah. The way to the drum machine. It was an interesting, innovative time for industrial, which is why I'm going to send Tracy back there in Hot Tub Time Machine for Torture. This is really the sweet spot. I see he's just Tracy. I feel like you should say something.
I want to hear what Tracy has to say about this.
I do too. I'm going to mute my ass.
So honestly, Ben picked the perfect time to pull this album out to where I wouldn't immediately reject it. Because prior to hearing this album, I had done a heavy dive of about 14 hours a day of nonstop metal, hammering that list down at the end of the year. And then my dog died the next day after that episode. And so coming out of that, didn't really listen to a lot of music, and this is just kind of something that just kind of put on a little more chill wise, and so it worked when it came on, and I didn't immediately like fuck this and just shut down and just grind my teeth while listening to it. So I was more receptive to it. And it was a good drain palate cleanser coming off of that 60-hour week of music spam that I did prior to it. And then, coming after my dog dying and then just trying to get back into the groove of going back to work and stuff. This album just kind of snuck in there and wasn't immediately like rejected. So I don't hate this album like I did. What was the album we did? About a month ago.
No, I think he's talking about that
Frontline Assembly.
Oh yeah, Frontline Assembly.
Yeah, which was for sure.
Yeah, like I didn't immediately like, why are we doing this album? It's not metal. Like it did. So it went underneath that radar. It's like, okay, here we are.
As much as we're saying that this isn't the hard industrial, it was more industrial than that particular Frontline Assembly album was.
It was also more industrial than most of what was on MTV in
For
1990.
sure. Like I said, man, this was, I completely agree with you and Gabe, this was not like bleeding edge industrial or anything like that. But this is, I still stand by that this is what broke, because I don't remember seeing Ministry on MTV until after this.
Hell no. No, like I think I made it on Beavis and Butthead, but it was after this.
Yeah.
And I want to also say that I think this is a better album overall than Frontline Assembly was. And I have experience with 9 Inch Nails. Frontline Assembly was a new thing for me. So I kind of knew what I was getting with this album anyways going into it.
Timing matters a lot. As we talked about, I mean, I was not a huge Mastodon fan, and then the pandemic happened, and I got a shitty pandemic album, and it just created synergy. Ben just throws his computer.
Nah, man. So good.
So
you like what you like. I mean, you can't.
Exactly.
I just
can't
he
spend
was
your life apologizing.
I just when he was like, I heard an interview with them, and no, I fucking hate them more. I'm like, Jesus. I thought he was gonna be like, yeah, I understand where they're coming from now. That was not Ben's reaction.
No, it was not the reaction. Anything more to say about this before we jump into tracks?
It was a cool record, and I really enjoyed listening to it again because I listened to the shit out of this. So playing Warhammer
I also have to say,
stuff.
like, the vocals are super exposed on this record, and like if they weren't so exposed, I wouldn't be so critical of them. But man, are they cringeworthy? Super, super like teenage angsty and
For sure.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah. That's part of the why it reminds me of Joy Division, because it is kind of that turn that really I mean, we talked about that with Korn, and new metal and being like so self-introspective, perhaps not to necessarily the cringe level of this, but this is doing it too. And that is that direct line out of the emergence of new wave, out of punk.
For sure.
So
I was 13 when I got this, and so it was absolutely the right demographic, as Korn was. I was 14 when that came out, so I was in that zone, which I'm like, what are you talking about? This is just a normal. Oh yeah. So yeah, no, I was that demographic.
yeah, I am surprised by when you have, like, I think I listed 6 producers, that it sounds so primitively produced. But I mean, that might just be a relic of the time and what he could afford to work with and everything like
what I
that.
was going to say. I mean, we talk about this a lot, that this era we're in now is an era of darkness in some ways, but in terms of like sound, and low cost of entry, it's much better. Yeah, he had $5, I think. So
Sure.
It was a bando with a dream, and just.
I mean, it's effective. I mean, he gets, it's not that it sounds terrible. It just sounds very sparsely produced for the number of
It does. I listened to the remastered one as well, and that was kind of cool. Sometimes I'm not a fan of those things. Like some of the Megadeth remasters piss me off. Like we don't have to talk about that. But it was interesting to listen to it, actually juiced a little. So
yeah. So since I picked this, I will go first on the track listing. I think Head Like a Hole is a phenomenal opening track, and it's not my favorite track off this album, but it is definitely the one that I was first exposed to. And if any of them are political, it's this one, because this is at least somewhat a critique of capitalism. So I'm here for that. I really like Down In It quite a bit too. Something I Can Never Have is a fantastic song, and really kind of sets up, in my mind, what Trent Reznor will go on to do with this band to great success on the Downward Spiral. Sin, I really love the bass line on. I had forgotten that this album had some really tasty bass lines on it, and really enjoyed that. But really, that's kind of it. A lot of the other tracks are kind of forgettable to me, and kind of don't really stand out.
I'll go next with David have his fun at the end and be like, oh, come on. But I think Head Like a Hole is a good opener. I think Something I Could Never Have is a fantastic song, and I really enjoy Sin a lot as well.
All right. Well, I will not be original and say that Head Like a Hole is really catchy. I liked Terrible Lie. I dug Sanctify because the bass is pretty sweet. It's funky, but also spooky. This is kind of also where I think the industrial approach really works. And the other song that I think is good on the record is Sin. It really, doesn't have anything wrong with it, either in the music department or the lyrics department. A lot of the other tracks, the lyrics just made me cringe, and I was not really there for it. Some of the synth sounds are really tight. Some of them sounds like, Sega Genesis like music, which is, either a product of, I don't know, the equipment available or just the choices that, Trent Reznor is making at the time. I don't really know. In any event, I give him a hand for, putting this together and for having the confidence to do it. But there are just a lot of cringe moments here, and it takes away a lot from the record for me.
Me and Trent both chose the Sega Genesis willingly, Gabe, and played the shit out of it. I'm
not saying there's nothing wrong with Sega Genesis. I loved Sega Genesis, but I'm saying, like, I don't know, two of the songs sound like, I don't know, theme music from
That's
fair. Well, he did do the theme for Quake. He did do the theme music for Quake.
When though?
Let me look it up.
I'm sure much later.
It was not in the 80s. I'll give you
that. It was not in the 80s.
Not in the 80s. I mean, he's kind of one of those
96.
Guys.
Yeah.
Later.
He's one of those guys that's kind of found a career as a film score, which.
Oh God, yes, and a producer and shit. No, he makes way more money doing all that stuff than this.
Oh yeah.
I'm an easy mark, man. Tracy's right. I like nearly all of these songs because, I had a lot of teen angst and wanted to die a lot when I was 13. This album's right in that pocket. Open strong, in strong. Ring Finger is awesome. Really, one of the only things I don't like on here is The Only Time annoys me. I don't know. And I understand he's in that sort of Red Hot Chili Peppers vein a tiny bit, right? It's a very, or early Faith No More. It's a very 1980 song, right, Gabe? It sounds like a Faith No More B-side anyway. But the rest of these songs I like a lot. That was pretty much the only one I used to skip. I'm going to give a shout out also. It's unfair, but the remastered version also has Get Down, Make Love, which was on the Sin single. That song is badass. It came out just a little after this and really leans into the industrial, and I think points towards the really dark, heavier shit that you see on the Downward Spiral. So, anyway, I know it listened to it by me, but it was sort of in the same year. As I said, it was on the Sin single, and it's on the remaster, and it's fucking awesome. I think better actually.
Started calling all their singles Ghost tracks or whatever.
Yes, before that, Ghost.
That's
the Reckoning.
Yeah, that's one of the things that always kind of annoyed me about Nine Inch Nails was the fans. But anyway, shout out Denny. Honestly, kind of the stuff that I really liked back in the 90s when I really got into this. Not that I ever really truly got into this particular album. I enjoyed, are really still kind of the ones that I still enjoy, but with a couple of extra spice because, like I said, I don't remember there being such tasty bass lines on this album.
Why did you pick
tasty bass lines for sure?
Tasty
like
bass lines.
The Only Time is just tight. I mean, I can't say he didn't play them in though, right? He just like did it on the keyboard.
I'm sure he did. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's kind of too bad because they are really, really awesome.
I know that when he went around to around this time when he started touring, I do believe that he had a bassist touring with them, playing them live, but I'm sure he wrote them all on a keyboard.
Yeah.
I have a theory as to why Ben picked it.
I think it's historical significance, but what's your theory?
Well, I saw his reaction when I said he got it in at the right time after I've been like, here's mainlining metal for 60 hours and 4 days. And his reaction to me saying that, he's just like, yes, and just he knew he knew he could get it in, but Tracy may not reject it immediately.
I mean, I don't care if you do or not. No, it was just we've kind of spotted around with some industrial stuff.
Sure.
And honestly, if we are going to talk industrial / metal, this is arguably, with the possible exception of Ministry, the largest industrial metal band, and we hadn't talked about them at all. And I thought we needed to start getting them into the conversation.
We do. I think KMFDM's the other one, and I'll get around to that.
Sure. That is the one that all the guys that I knew, because I knew like 3 or 4 dudes who like took off to Chicago to be in industrial bands, and that was the band that they all listened to and were like super into. But that was like the industrial insider band.
Oh no, totally, yeah, and no, they were never mainstream even remotely in the same way as even Ministry, which is saying something. Yeah. No, they were definitely the completest industrial band, but we're talking about bands we're not reviewing, so we should grade this fucker.
We should grade this fucker.
Sorry, everyone. Just rambling about industrial. Tracy's favorite genre.
I will go first. I'm going to give this a slight half a grade bump to this because of its significance, even though it's not their biggest album, the one that really made an impact with them. But this is the one that kind of got the mainstream again to beat that drum, paying attention a little bit to industrial. But overall, I'm just going to give this a B-. I think it's a solid album. It has 3 really standout tracks and a couple others that are okay. But again, the rest of it is just kind of filler.
I'm going to be right there with Ben and give it a B- as well. I think it's a solid album, but I don't know if it's an album I'm going to keep coming back to.
I think we're right in the sweet spot, fellas, because I gave this a B- as well. I think that, Trent Reznor was aspiring to be like this dark version of Prince, and I feel like he maybe could have gotten there if this had come out like a little bit later in his life, but we got this. So it's still got a good couple of cool tracks on it. I would definitely come back to those.
I, not surprisingly, am going to fuck this up totally because I think this album is important in terms of what it allowed to come after it. It's not their best album. I think Downward Spiral is better. I think even Burn maybe is slightly better. I'm going to give this the lowest A. I'm going to give this a 93. So a full letter grade higher than you. Your 3 grades knock it down to what, Tracy? Probably an 84 or something, 83.
It's an aggregate of an 85.
Oh, yes, I did it. Anyway, brought it into B territory. No, I dig this record a lot. And I know it's pure nostalgia and teen angst. But, this album was made with me in mind, apparently. So 93.
Yeah. David, I think the next album we're doing was made with you in mind as well.
Oh, I think it was too. And even more so than this one. But we'll go on our Entombed journey soon enough.
Yeah. We're gonna ride, and to do that, we got to shoot straight and speak the truth.
You got to. In this Roman numeral thing that I stared at forever, and then I'm like 6. Thanks.
There it is.
There it is. Thanks, Entombed. You guys.
Indeed. Join us next time as we get our Swedish Western going.
You're welcome, everyone. Oh, Thunderdome, you give so much and ask for so much more.
Indeed.